Hi, everyone. My name is Kurt Bachman, and welcome back to Escoffier's podcast. In today's episode, we are featuring Chef André Natera, Executive Chef of the Fairmont Hotel in Austin, Texas, and host of the Run the Pass podcast and web series. Also a former mixed martial arts artist. Join us as we chat with Chef André about making good career decisions and his method for hiring and creating a progressive learning environment in the kitchen. Chef, welcome. I am so excited that you're here today. How's everything?
Chef, today is a good day. It's always a good day if I get to see you.
Hey, I have to say, I want to catch our listeners up really, really fast. You're a high profile chef, and you don't know how proud I am to say that. People will know in a minute why. Your hotel is beautiful. Your food is amazing. You're super active on social media. You're what I like to call a culinary rock star. And by the way, my wife made me, Gretchen said, you gotta thank Chef André again. She had such a good time in Austin with her bestie this past weekend. Thanks so much for treating them so well.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure. Tell her the pleasure was all mine, and it was an honor to serve your wife and her guests.
Hey, it helps me in the long run, buddy. It helps me in the long run. So thank you.
I was trying to make you look good.
That you did. So let me ask you about that. Friends, colleagues, you run in some pretty high profile circles, the Thomas Kellers of the world, right? And do you have a lot of colleagues, let's say, in the industry that reach out looking for help or for guidance, social media direction, want to do their own podcasts? Do you get a lot of that?
You know, I would say I do get a lot of friends that reach out and we talk. I wouldn't necessarily say for help of what they're doing. You know, sometimes they just need to bounce an idea off, and we sit around, we have a quick discussion. And I would say that's more on the peer level. But chefs that have worked for me always reach out all the time and say, hey, you know, what would you do in this situation? How would you handle that situation? And that relationship is more of a mentor relationship that I have with, ex chefs that used to be my sous chef or something like that are now, at the helm of their own kitchen. So I would say the relationship is different if we've worked together versus if we're industry peers, industry colleagues, or industry friends.
Is that a point of pride for you? When you were just mentioning that, I thought to myself, I'm a successful college football coach. Every year I'm winning national championships, right? And every year my crew is getting bigger jobs, right? Because they're getting exposure. Yep. Is that a place of pride for you when you lose a sous chef that moves on to, an executive chef position?
That's a good question, because when they leave and it's not for something better, it's a hard conversation to explain to them, hey, maybe you're not making the right career decision right now. And they don't want to always hear that, because, when you're ready for a promotion, you're ready for a promotion by any means necessary. So it's a tougher conversation when they're not ready, but when they are ready and they get that dream job, that's a source of pride. When they pass me, when they become more successful, when they open their hotel, their restaurant, when they get their accolades and their awards, I love it. Nothing makes me more proud than that. On the flip side, though, someone that's left that's not ready, I always worry about them a little bit, because I know that, hey, you know what? In my years of experience, I might see what they have.
Got it. I wasn't going to go here, but the last time we chatted, we talked about books, and I thought it was amazing. It was a fun fact that I didn't know. I didn't realize what a reader you were, kind of Bill Gates type, a book a week type of thing. And I'll bring up the one that we both read not too long ago as the pandemic was raging, right? But what's the most recent book that you read?
So today I just wrapped up Octa Philosophy.
Tell me about
Andre Chang.
Okay.
It's great. It's Andre Chang. It's his philosophy on book. A lot of people buy cookbooks and they don't read them. I read the cookbook page to page to page. I read every single recipe. So I just finished up Octa Philosophy today, and I started reading Animal Farm.
No way. Really? Really?
Yeah,
Old school.
yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
that was the transition, ending octophilosophy, going into Animal Farm.
Brilliant, brilliant. So we've known each other for a while, and I'm going to
Mhm.
give my age away here. But what folks might not know is that many moons ago, as I just got started teaching in the culinary education space, you were one of my first students,
Mhm.
and probably my best, probably my best. I cannot tell you how proud of you I am. And so again, shamelessly plugging one of our favorite books, Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights. I
Mhm.
would say you had a lot of green lights, right? I mean, I'm sure some yellows and some reds, but what do you attribute the the green lights to?
Um, I think the green lights started early when I was young. And that was, my father instilled a great work ethic in me. True story, he would take me to work when I was 6 years old. He was a carpenter, built furniture. So on Saturdays when I wanted to play, I was like, no, let's go to work. And so from a very young age, I've never been afraid of hard work. I just always assumed like, hey, you just got to work hard. So that was instilled in me very young. So I was never afraid of hard work. And I'm extremely competitive in anything, by the way. Like if someone says, "Hey, you want to compete in this?" I'm like, "Sure," and I don't have a chance in hell to win. I'll still compete with you. So I think that competitive mindset and being unafraid of hard work, it just opened up a lot of doors for me because it allowed people to recognize, and you know this from working in kitchens. If you have an employee that works hard, he's not afraid of hard work, and he's trying to get better every day, you invest your time in that person, right? So as a young person, as a young cook, as a young sous chef, every single chef that I've worked for always invested in me because they saw that. They saw that I wanted to come in early. They saw that I was reading all these cookbooks all the time and always come in with ideas. They saw that I was motivated. So every chef along the way, took me under their wing, which again made me better by having these chef mentors. So I would say those were the green lights. It was creating opportunity and then saying yes when opportunities presented themselves to me.
Really, really good advice. So before culinary school, before working in the industry, before Fairmont, tell us about how that competitive streak brought you into the martial arts field, and where did you go with that?
So this is when I was young, boxing and wrestling and doing martial arts. When I was young, people don't know this, but my mom was a martial arts instructor.
Oh
She used to
wow.
teach Tai Chi Chuan, which is a Chinese style of derivative of Kung Fu. And so I was always into the martial arts as a kid. And then when I became a little bit older, and I'm living in Portland, Oregon, mixed martial arts was on the scene, and so going to culinary school by night, training whenever I had a free day, in kickboxing or wrestling or whatever the case may be.
Oh,
And
so
I wanted,
you were doing it while you were a student?
yeah,
Oh, I
mhm,
didn't know that. Okay, cool, cool.
yep. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that was the real dream. The real dream was I wanted to be a professional fighter.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
and so I started to pursue that, and environments in professional fighting gyms and boxing gyms and wrestling gyms is very similar to the environment of kitchens, right? There's an order of hierarchy. It might be the coach at the top of the hierarchy, where in the kitchen it's the chef. But there's kind of this mentality of performance gets rewarded and recognized the same way it does in a fight gym is the same way it does in a kitchen. So you start to build this competitive mindset that translates very well to a kitchen environment. And I wanted to fight. I wanted to be a fighter. There was a point in time in my career when I was offered my first executive chef role. At the same time, I was also offered to turn pro as a fighter, and I had to sit back and think, should I become a professional fighter? Should I become an executive chef? And in speaking with my friends that were pro fighters at the time, and asking them how much money they made, and then knowing how much money I would make as a chef. This was before the UFC was on ESPN, and you could see it every Saturday night. This is when it was more of a fringe sport. So, it was like, you're going to make $6,000 a fight and maybe fight 3 times a year. So $18,000 a year. I was like, with the chance of getting my leg broken, I think I'll take cooking where I can not break my legs. Yeah.
Yeah. The economics didn't work out. Do you still,
No,
do you still train or?
I stopped training in about 2017. Was the last time I stepped foot in a boxing gym or a martial arts gym. I had taken a little break, and when I got back into it, it's funny because I put on weight. I'm not as limber. I'm not as fast, and I jumped right back in, thinking, "Oh, I still got it," thinking I could still fight like I could 10 years ago. Boy, was I wrong! I got my butt kicked. I got my butt kicked when I went back to the gym. It took me, a good 6 months to knock the rust off and be competitive. But I'll tell you what, not to brag, but by the end of the time, 2017, when I stopped training again, I was relatively competitive with the pro fighters again. So I felt pretty good.
Like riding a bike?
Well, the thing is, it's like riding a bike when you were 5 years old and thinking that you're still, you're still that same size. Then all of a sudden you get on the same tricycle and it's an adult, and you're like, I don't fit in this anymore. Yeah. The body doesn't move the same.
I guess I didn't realize it. And I do remember, Portland was one of those cities where it was big, right? It was super, super popular. And I did not realize that it was while you were going to school, because you were a good student. You were a good student. You didn't miss school.
I was a good student. I didn't miss school.
Hey, so let's talk about the industry. So I've got all kinds of questions, but just some general statements. We're coming out of a long year. You just recently kind of got your restaurants going again there in Austin. What are some of your general thoughts on the industry going forward?
My general thoughts right now on the industry going forward really are around the next generation of cooks and chefs coming into it right now. There's a supply and demand issue across, probably across the nation when it comes to cook jobs versus cooks. So getting people in, getting them trained, and then getting them to fall in love with this business is probably the biggest challenge that we're facing as an industry. Is that there's a big cook shortage across the nation. So cooks have come in and worked their way up relatively quickly into a sous chef role and then a head chef role, probably in about a quarter of the time as they used to when you and I were coming up in the kitchen, right? There's many more resources now for a cook to become better at what they do. You could look at YouTube. There's what you're doing with Escoffier. There's programs for online learning. So now a cook could become just better at what they do versus when you and I were coming up, you looked at a cookbook and you waited till the next cookbook came out before you would upgrade your skills, right? You had to wait for Charlie Trotter's next book to come out before you saw what was the new. We're now, people in the industry, they get it quickly, instantly on Instagram, on Facebook, whatever social media platform that they're using. So because of that hastens their career trajectory. So you're no longer a line cook for 5 or 10 years before you ever get promoted. You're maybe a line cook 1 or 2 years before you're ready for sous chef. So I think that's a big difference right now in the industry from when you and I were coming up versus what it is now. And so we have to figure out a way to incentivize people to remain in position a little bit longer than they probably want to. So that we got to look at pay rates. We got to look at opportunities for growth. There's a lot to look at. And I'm not saying I have the answers, but I'm saying that this is probably one of the biggest problems that we're facing as an industry currently.
So for you specifically, with that as a backdrop, what are you looking for specifically? Maybe even today in a young culinarian that maybe was something you didn't look for 10 years ago.
So what I'm looking for in a young culinarian is, first of all, work ethic, right? Because the one thing that hasn't changed forever in a kitchen from the times of Escoffier to now is that you do need to cook, you do need to work. There's still that requirement that hasn't changed. So number one, you got to have the work ethic. And And number two, you got to be able to work within the team and listen. So as long as you have those things, then we can start building upon those skills. So number one, do you have the work ethic? Because it is, the culinary industry, this is the one thing that that we have that's different from a lot of other industries. It is a meritocracy, right? So it doesn't matter how much money you make. It doesn't matter what kind of car you drive. It doesn't matter who your boyfriend or who your girlfriend is. It doesn't matter what your parents do. The only thing that matters is how did you do today during service and can you cook? That's it. That's the only thing the rest of your team cares about. It's the great equalizer. So understanding that and being able to tone down any of that other noise from the outside world and understand, like, when I'm in the kitchen, the only currency I have, the only value I bring is my culinary skill set and my ability to work with others and my ability to work on the line or handle the pressure. So if you focus on those things, focus on those things.
Yeah. So take us back a little bit. The kitchen has changed over the years, and you've held many different positions, and we'll get to the restaurant in a minute too. What would you say, for you anyway, was the most difficult, where you needed to be unbelievably patient, and conversely, the position that you enjoyed the most? You should probably say your current one.
It's true. My current one is the one I do enjoy the most.
That's great. Yeah.
And so here's what it is. So throughout my career, from when I was your student in 1995 in Portland, Oregon, at the Western Culinary Institute.
Oh, he just gave my age away.
Le Cordon Bleu. Sorry, yeah. I think you were like 21. I don't know.
That a boy. Oh, I love it.
But if you think back, if I think back to that point in time in my career, to where I am now, I've progressively become better as a chef like this, right? In this linear line moving upwards, I've progressively gotten better from my culinary skill set. But I wasn't always successful. So the success was highs and lows across the board. And so if I'm becoming a better cook with every job and every year, why am I not becoming more successful with every job and every year? And so it took some soul searching for me to understand the why. And the reason was because the places where I was very successful were places that there was a great workplace environment. The places that I was least successful were places that the workplace culture was toxic, or not conducive, to a healthy kitchen, right? And so the reason I would say I'm most happy in the current role is because what I did when I took this job was I put culture at the top of the hierarchy and said, if we could make sure the kitchen culture is correct and you want to be here, and we build a foundation with the culture, all the other things will take care of themselves, right? The cooks will be happy, right? The standards will be in place, the discipline will be there, and then we could produce great food as a byproduct of this environment. But if you work in chaos and people are angry and it's not fun to be at work, it doesn't matter how talented you are, people don't want to be there, right? And you're not going to be successful. So again, the reason I think that this is my favorite job is because I put culture and workplace first. And the place that I would say that I was the least successful, even I might have been doing great food, but the culture wasn't there. So it doesn't matter how good the food was. I wasn't happy going to work, and neither was the team.
No, great response. Great advice. Should young culinarians aspire to open up their own restaurant?
No. No, next question. I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean, you have the good fortune. I mean, you worked hard, right? And you worked for a great company, a big company with hotels all around the world, right? And I've been to your hotel. It's absolutely beautiful. It's only a couple of years old. The kind of the food space there is really contemporary. It's really relevant, kind of that food hall sort of vibe, right? There's nothing that a guest would want for when they're at your hotel. But I imagine young culinarians, I was the same, just couldn't wait to open up our own place. But yeah, speak to that a little bit, because I think you went down that path for a minute, right?
I did. It's really the unknown unknown. It sounds like a good idea. You want to have your own restaurant, but you don't take into the consideration of how expensive that is. You know, we could probably end the conversation just with the expense that goes into a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
And in today's terms, you're talking a million, maybe millions of dollars to open up a restaurant. So, you know, in order to raise the capital to do that, that's a big investment. When we're talking millions of dollars or $1 million to open something up, you know, something decent, right?
Mhm.
So there's a big cost associated with opening up a restaurant. And then, you know, you factor in, okay, well, what's the lifespan of a restaurant? A lot of people say, you know, 2, 3, 4 years. You know, what are the chances that your restaurant that you've captured lightning in a bottle, and that your restaurant's going to be around, you know, maybe 10 years to repay back that initial $1 million investment, right? So it's a high price to pay for a small reward. There's a risk that your restaurant might not make it. Most restaurants don't. There's a risk that you're not going to ever get your money back. You're going to risk potentially losing everything that you've ever worked for and saved for. So opening up a restaurant it's not a huge financial incentive to open up a restaurant. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't chefs that have done it very well and they're very successful. You know, I think you're in Austin, the Uchi group. You know, I feel like they are the business model to scale or mimic. You know, you look at what Thomas Keller has done with the Thomas Keller Restaurant Group, Michael Mina, and so on and so forth. So there are chefs that have figured out and have become very successful. But in Austin, I could probably count 3 or 4 groups that have done that. And we're becoming a primary market where, if you think about, you know, your other cities in New York or LA, you know, there's probably 5 to 10 chefs that have done it successfully in those bigger markets. So the odds of it happening are very low when you think about how many people want to open up a restaurant, and then how many people succeed at the restaurant. So the financial incentive is not there when you could do it in a hotel, or you could do it in a country club, or you could do it, you know, working for Facebook or Apple or Google or whatever the case may be, or even working in a restaurant that someone successful owns. Like, go work for the Michael Mina Group and learn how to run a good restaurant before you go and open up your own. It's a dangerous game to open up your own restaurant. And I think if you go in blindly and thinking you have this romantic notion of what it is, you're going to be in for a big surprise.
And there's so many incredible other opportunities for young culinarians today, all culinarians today. I know that, Chef, I know that training and education is really important to you. I've seen it in action at your hotel. In your opinion, what environment do you believe is the most conducive to learning for young culinarians?
You need to be okay with making mistakes, I would say, first and foremost. So you have to celebrate innovation, you have to celebrate creativity, and you have to allow that to flourish. You can't shut it down, but you need to control it. You need to put it in a controlled setting where the creativity is going to be allowed to flourish. So I'll give you an example of some of the things that we do in my kitchen. We have a lot of standards around very simple things, like the way we greet each other, to how we fold towels, to the way we roll our apron, to the way we set up a workstation. And those things are not changeable. And the reason that we do that is because we want to turn down the noise of having to think about those things. So that way you could, if you're thinking about where do I put my knife and how should I put my apron and what color is my shirt today and what kind of socks am I wearing, you end up getting what's called decision fatigue, because you're thinking about all these things that don't really make an impact to what's important. So if we could tone down the noise by creating standards around all these things, then we could really just focus on the food. So I think you need to create an environment where you have some parameters of which people can work in. And then you have to tell people, okay, now your job is to make everything better, right? But don't just change it for the sake of changing it. So communicate that up. So if someone has a new way to peel asparagus, they will show me, Chef, I have a way to peel asparagus that's more efficient than the way that you're doing it. I'll say, great, show me. And once they show me, if I like it, great, let's do that. And then I'll teach everyone else in the kitchen, or we'll communicate to the rest of the staff. This is the new way that we're peeling asparagus because this is what Johnny showed us. This is much better and much more practical than the way that we were doing it. So creating an environment like that allows people to flourish and be creative, I think is important, number one. But the other thing is mistakes are going to happen along the way. So I love to use the saying, you can make as many mistakes as you want, but just don't make the same one twice, because then it becomes a choice, right? So you're either choosing to do it wrong because you're not learning. So make mistakes. Encourage people to make mistakes. If you're not making enough mistakes, then you're not trying enough different things. So having that type of discussion amongst the team, I think, is very important to creating that environment where people could really flourish in.
I love the standards. And you got to remind me, like, for example, kitchen rags, right? That everyone uses. You don't call them kitchen rags, do you?
No, we call them towels.
Call them towels. Very respectful.
We call them towels. Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't call it the dish. We don't call it the dish pit either. We call it the dish station.
I love that. Escoffier would have loved that. Yeah. So we've only got a few minutes left. I've got to touch on the spelling bee piece. Sometimes you call yourself a nerd, but I think this is the coolest thing in the world. Can you just give us a brief summary on this? You took 8th place in this national spelling bee. Is that what it was?
No. So you're getting two things confused, by the way. So my name on Instagram right now is Spelling Bee Champ 2021. It's misspelled, by the way. Okay. It's misspelled. I just want to see if people are paying attention.
Of course it is. Okay.
I'm glad someone's paying attention. No, I was in the United States Memory Championship. That's what it was. Last year. Yeah. So there was about 200 competitors. I placed 8th. It was put on by MIT. Honestly, I just entered it because I wanted to say, who else do you know that's in the memory competition, right? Like, I've never met anyone in a memory competition. I was like, I'll do that. That sounds fun. Like I said,
and you're competitive. You're competitive.
That's why I did
it. You're competitive.
So it's like a competition. Sure, I'm in. I honestly didn't really prepare for it very much. Once I got the gist of how the memory competition works, I practiced for about a week, and then I placed 8th out of 200 people. If you could believe that. I don't know how I did it. I actually forgot how I did it, if that makes sense.
So knock knock.
Yeah, who's there?
Memory's fading, buddy. Memory's fading already. Come on now. My wife calls you an influencer. Do you hear that term a lot? Because we watch Run the Pass and we talk about it, and she's big on Instagram. Do you consider yourself an influencer out there?
I've never really thought about that. I don't consider myself an influencer. I consider myself a cheerleader more than anything. I'm always out there trying to promote my team, what they're doing. We just recently reopened our restaurant Garrison. We have an amazing chef de cuisine named Jacob Chishin, and I can't pronounce his name. He's got 3 Z's in it. So we just call him Triple Z. But I'm always out there promoting what we're doing in Garrison and promoting him. We have amazing chefs on the team, and when any of them are doing something particularly amazing, I like to be out there screaming, look over here. We have an amazing chef, and everyone should be paying attention to what this person's doing. So even the podcast that I do, it's about celebrating the other chef that I'm interviewing and what they're doing and what their successes are. I don't know if I'm an influencer or more of a cheerleader.
I like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So in the few seconds we have left, what's next? Are you working on something super special? Can you give us a little peek into what's next for Chef André?
Yeah. So I really love mentoring people, right? So if I could figure out a way to mentor more people, I would love to do that. And I've actually been thinking about more to come. I'll reveal that later, but I've actually been thinking about how I could get more one-on-one time with kids that are coming into the industry and spend some time with them, mentoring and being a coach for them in the industry. They don't even have to be, particularly people that work for me. Of course, the people that work for me, it's much easier for them because they have access to me. But I kind of want to see how I could do that now that we have technology. You can just meet over Zoom like we are right now. How can I get a greater audience just to help young culinarians and mentor them along the way? So I'm working on something like that.
I'm not surprised at all. I'm so unbelievably proud of you. Thank you. I owe you one. I need to be a guest on your podcast. I know I delayed that a little bit ago, so I'm going to jump back on. We have so much to talk about, and let's do this again soon. Okay.
Anytime. It's always a pleasure.
All right. All right. Thank you so much, Jeff.
Thank you.